Sabine Hoffman never imagined that a simple Facebook message would completely change her life at age 52. It was March 2019 and the Dusseldorf divorce had spent the last 3 years trying to rebuild her life after a bitterly ended 20-year marriage. Working as a nurse at a local hospital, Sabine maintained a predictable routine. Work, home, caring for her elderly mother and occasional outings with the few friends she still kept in touch with. During one of those lonely nights, absent-mindedly browsing social media, that a friend request caught her attention. The profile showed a dark-haired, elegant-looking man in his mid-40s with a charming smile and piercing eyes. His name was Kemal Uskan, and according to the basic information he was from Istanbul, Turkey. The profile photo showed a well-dressed man in front of what appeared to be a modern office, and other images revealed an apparently prosperous life, dinners at sophisticated restaurants, international travel, and an apartment overlooking the Bosphorus. "Hello, beautiful German lady," was Kamal's first message written in simple but functional English. "I saw your profile and was impressed by your kindness. I hope we can be friends." Sabine hesitated at first. It was unusual to receive messages from strange men, especially from other countries. But there was something about Kamal's respectful approach that intrigued her. Besides, after years of loneliness, male attention, even if virtual, brought a long-forgotten feeling. The first conversations were cautious and courteous. Kemal introduced himself as a successful businessman in the import and export sector, specializing in textiles between Turkey and European countries. He told her about his life in Istanbul, described the city with passion and demonstrated a knowledge of German culture that impressed Sabine. Yet, about her work, showed genuine interest in her routine, and gradually began to share more intimate details about his own life. "My wife died 5 years ago of cancer," Kemal revealed during a WhatsApp conversation after 2 weeks of daily chats. "Since then I focus solely on work, but I miss having someone special to share my life with." The words touched Sabine deeply, who identified with the pain of loss and loneliness. She herself had lost her father 2 years earlier and was still dealing with grief. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Kemal became a constant presence in Sabine's life. He sent her affectionate messages every day. "Good morning, my German angel. How was your shift at the hospital, my dear? I'm thinking of you while I work here in Istanbul. Duran." The conversations evolved into voice calls where Sabine was enchanted by Kemal's Turkish accent and his deep, smooth voice. What impressed Sabine the most was Kemal's apparent financial stability. He often mentioned important deals, international contracts, and successful investments. He sent photos of his meals at expensive restaurants, his business trips to Dubai, London, and Frankfurt, and his modern office in downtown Istanbul. "I work hard, but God has blessed me with success," he would say with apparent humility. During the first few months, Kemal never asked for money or any material favors. On the contrary, he constantly offered Sabine financial help, asking if she needed anything, if she wanted him to send her gifts from Turkey. This initial generosity made Sabine completely let her guard down. "I finally found a man who isn't interested in my money," she thought, unaware that she was being carefully prepared for an elaborate trap. Sabine's transformation was noticeable. To those who knew her, the once reserved and melancholic nurse became more cheerful and communicative. Coworkers commented on her more frequent smile and renewed energy. "I've met someone special," Sabine confided to her best friend, Petra Vogel, proudly showing her photos of Kemal. "He's unlike any man I've ever met." Petra, a practical 48-year-old woman who worked as an accountant, expressed skepticism about Sabine's virtual relationship from the start. "Don't you think it's strange that a successful and handsome businessman is interested in a woman he's never met in person?" she asked over coffee in the hospital cafeteria. "And why can't he come to Germany if he has so much money?" But Sabine, deeply emotionally involved, interpreted these concerns as jealousy or excessive pessimism. "You don't understand, Petra," she replied with growing irritation. "Kemal is different. He really loves me. I finally found someone who values me." Her friend's resistance only strengthened her determination to prove them wrong. During this period, Kemal demonstrated an impressive ability to touch the most sensitive points of Sabine's psyche. He seemed to intuitively understand her insecurities, her unfulfilled dreams, and her deepest emotional needs. "Sabine, my love, "You deserve to be treated like a queen," he would say. During their video calls, "Your ex-husband was a fool for not appreciating such a special woman." Klaus, Spine's ex-husband, had been critical and emotionally distant during the last years of their marriage, leaving her with deeply shaken self-esteem. Kamal's words were like balm for these still open wounds. He also demonstrated surprising knowledge of German culture, citing movies, books, and even traditional dishes he would love to try when he visited Germany. "I have always dreamed of experiencing Oktoberfest in Munich," he confided. "But now my biggest dream is to stroll with you through the Christmas markets in Dusseldorf." These specific cultural references made Sabine feel understood and valued in a way she had never experienced in her previous marriage. As the months passed, their conversations became more intimate and frequent. Kamal called every night after Sabine's work, demonstrating detailed knowledge of her hospital routine. He asked about specific patients without her realizing how inappropriate it was to share such information about conflicts with colleagues, and even about her personal finances. "As a nurse in Germany, you must earn well," he commented casually during a conversation. "Here in Turkey, we have a lot of respect for healthcare professionals. Do you have investments? Savings? A smart woman like you surely plans well for the future." Flattered by the attention and apparent trust, Sabine shared details about her financial situation, including her savings and even information about the hospital's pension fund. During the 4th month of their relationship, Kamal began to mention concrete plans for a face-to-face meeting. "My heart can't take being away from you anymore," he declared during a particularly emotional video call. "I need to hold your hands, look into your eyes for real, not through a screen." Of the emotional intensity of these statements made Sabine tremble with anxiety and anticipation. Unbeknownst to her, every word she shared, every detail of her life she revealed was being carefully catalogued and analyzed. Kamal Erskine was not who he claimed to be, and the elaborate romantic fantasy he was building around Sabine had a much more sinister purpose than she could ever imagine. The trap was being set with surgical precision, and Sabine was walking straight into it, blinded by the promise of a love she hadn't felt in years. As the virtual relationship deepened, Kamal demonstrated an impressive ability to touch the most sensitive points of Sabine's psyche. He seemed to intuitively understand her insecurities, her unfulfilled dreams, and her deepest emotional needs. During their long nighttime conversations when Sabine was most vulnerable after grueling shifts at the hospital, Kamal became the perfect listener, the ideal confidant, and the emotional support she so desperately craved. "Sabine, my love, you deserve to be treated like a queen," Kamal would say during their weekly video calls. "Your ex-husband was a fool for not appreciating such a special woman." Words were like balm for the still open wounds of Sabine's difficult divorce. Klaus, her ex-husband, had been critical and emotionally distant during the last years of their marriage, leaving her with deeply shaken self-esteem. Little by little, Kamal was rebuilding her confidence with calculated compliments and constant attention. The Turkish businessman also demonstrated surprising knowledge of German culture, citing classic films such as Das Boot and Wings of Desire, mentioning authors such as Thomas Mann and even traditional dishes he would love to try when visiting Germany. "I've always dreamed of experiencing Oktoberfest in Munich," he confided with seemingly genuine enthusiasm. "But now my biggest dream is to stroll with you through the Christmas markets in Dusseldorf, drinking Glühwein and eating Lucken." These specific cultural references made Sabine feel understood and valued in a way she had never experienced before. Klaus had never shown any interest in the more romantic aspects of German culture, considering festivals and traditions to be a commercial waste of time. Kamal's passion for her country's culture made Sabine feel proud of her own roots. During the 5th month of their relationship, the conversations became more strategic. Kamal began asking seemingly casual questions about Sabine's work routine at the hospital. "It must be difficult to deal with so much suffering every day," he would say with feigned compassion. "How do you handle the hospital's finances? Imagine it's complicated to manage such large budgets." Flattered by his interest, Sabine would explain in detail the administrative systems, international transfers for medical equipment, and even the institution's banking protocols. "You're so smart." Kamal constantly praised her. "A woman with your experience could work anywhere in the world. International hospitals would pay very well for someone with your knowledge." These observations planted seeds in Sabine's mind about possibilities for a career change, international travel, and a more glamorous life with him. The emotional escalation was carefully orchestrated. At the beginning of the 6th month, Kamal began to mention concrete plans for a face-to-face meeting. "My heart can no longer bear to be away from you," he declared during a particularly emotional video call where real tears welled up in his eyes. "I need to hold your hands, look into your eyes for real, not through a cold screen." The emotional intensity of these statements made Sabine tremble with anxiety and anticipation. The plans for the meeting were meticulously crafted by Kamal. He explained that he had an important business meeting in Dubai with international investors, but that he could make a stopover specifically to meet Sabine. "Dubai is a business hub for my company," he explained, showing documents that appeared to be legitimate commercial contracts with European companies. "We close million-euro deals there, but I would cancel any business for you, my love." The choice of Dubai as the location was not accidental. Kamal knew that the city represented in the imagination of many people a symbol of wealth, modernity, and international success. By positioning himself as someone who did business in this glamorous setting, he automatically elevated his credibility and status in Sabine's eyes. Dubai also offered practical advantages for his true plans. More complex laws for foreigners, sophisticated security systems that could work in his favor, and a neutral location where Sabine would feel isolated. "Why don't we meet directly in Dubai?" Kamal suggested with calculated enthusiasm. "I can pay for your first-class ticket, book the presidential suite at the Burj Al Arab. It will be our honeymoon before the wedding." The proposal was both romantic and extravagant. Exactly the kind of gesture that Sabine, after years of a lackluster relationship with Klaus, considered the height of romance. At first, Sabine hesitated, traveling to meet a man she knew only virtually seemed risky even for someone deeply in love. She expressed her concerns during a tense conversation. "Kamal, I love you, but this is a big step. Dubai is so far away and I've never been there before." Kamal was patient and persuasive in his response. "I completely understand your concerns, my love," he said with apparent understanding. "A smart woman like you should be cautious, but love sometimes requires courage. Remember how we met? You had the courage to accept my Facebook friend request. Now I need you to have the courage to take the next step toward our happiness." To dispel any remaining doubts, Kamal organized an elaborate credibility stunt. He arranged a video call from what he claimed was his office in Istanbul, showing employees working in the background an impressive view of the city, and even corporate signs with his company's name. During the call, he introduced Sabine to his business partner, a man named Hassan, who spoke fluent English and enthusiastically confirmed the legitimacy of Kamal's business. "Kamal is one of our most trusted partners," Hassan said during the video call. "His company handles millions of euros in international trade. He talks to me constantly about you, Sabine. He's truly in love." This third-party validation was crucial in convincing Sabine of Kamal's authenticity. The emotional pressure intensified when Kamal began to express growing anxiety about the future of the relationship. "Sabine, I need to know if you really love me," he said during a particularly tense conversation. "If we can't meet in person after 6 months of dating, maybe we should rethink our future together. Can't continue to love someone who doesn't trust me enough to take a leap of faith." This subtle but powerful emotional manipulation put Sabine in a position where refusing to meet would mean questioning not only her courage but also the authenticity of her own feelings. The nurse who had spent her life caring for others and putting her own needs on the back burner finally felt that someone wanted to care for her and prioritize her. "Okay," Sabine said during a tearful phone call. "I'll book my vacation at the hospital. I'll go to Dubai to meet you." The words came out of her mouth before she could reconsider sealing her fate. During this time, Sabine's friends, especially Petra, intensified their concerns. "Sabine, this sounds exactly like the scams we see in documentaries," Petra warned during a tense lunch. "Perfect man, rich, love at first sight, taking you to an exotic country. Please reconsider this." But Sabine, deeply emotionally involved in interpreting their concerns as jealousy or excessive pessimism, responded with growing irritation. "You don't understand what true love is. Kamal is unlike any man I've ever met. He values me, respects me, wants to take care of me. I finally found someone who sees me for who I really am." Her friend's resistance only strengthened her determination to prove them wrong. Sabine began to distance herself from the social circle that was trying to protect her, isolating herself more and more in the fantasy Kamal had created. Without realizing it, she was following exactly the script he had planned. An emotionally vulnerable, financially stable, socially isolated, and desperately in love woman. The perfect victim for what was to come. On September 1, 2019, Sabine finally bought her ticket to Dubai, setting the date for September 15th. She didn't know she was buying a ticket to the worst nightmare of her life. September 15, 2019 was marked on Sabine's calendar as the beginning of her new life. She had requested a week off from work at the hospital, bought new clothes that cost almost €1,000, had her hair and nails done at an expensive salon in Dusseldorf, and even lost 6 pounds in the months leading up to the meeting through a strict diet and daily exercise. The physical transformation reflected her inner euphoria. Finally, after months of torturous anticipation, she would meet the man who had completely stolen her heart. The preparation for the trip had been meticulous. Sabine bought expensive French lingerie, imported perfumes, and even hired a personal shopper to choose the perfect wardrobe for romantic days in Dubai. "I want to be perfect for him," she confided to the boutique saleswoman, her eyes shining with a happiness she hadn't felt in years. "This is the love of my life." The flight from Frankfurt to Dubai lasted 6 long hours, during which Sabine oscillated between extreme excitement and natural nervousness. She had exchanged messages with Kaimal until the last moment before boarding, receiving reassuring words and passionate declarations that made her heart race. "I can't wait to hold you in my arms, my German angel," he had written on WhatsApp. "I'm already at the hotel getting ready for our reunion. I bought red roses, French champagne, and even a special ring. Will be magical, my love." During the flight, Sabine mentally reviewed all the special moments she had shared virtually with Kamal over 6 intense months. The affectionate words that arrived every morning. The promises for the future they made together during their nightly calls. The detailed plans they had made for him to visit Germany, meet her family, maybe even get married in the small church where her parents had married decades earlier. Everything seemed perfectly aligned for the beginning of a new and genuinely happy life. The passenger next to her, a German woman in her 60s returning from a business trip, noticed Sabine's excited nervousness. "First time in Dubai?" she asked kindly. "I'm going to meet someone very special," Sabine replied, unable to contain her beaming smile. "The man of my dreams." The woman smiled back, but something in her eyes suggested a maternal concern that Sabine was too elated to notice. Dubai International Airport impressed Sabine with its grandeur and modernity, which exceeded even her expectations based on the photos Kamal had sent her. It was even more luxurious and futuristic than she had imagined. Giant 15-meter-high artificial palm trees, ornamental fountains with dancing water synchronized to music, international brand stores such as Cartier and Bulgari, and architecture that looked like it came straight out of a science fiction movie. The opulence created an atmosphere that left her simultaneously dazzled and slightly intimidated by the magnitude of the place. Kaimal had explained in detail that he would meet her in the international arrivals area, specifically near Gate B7, where there was a lotus-shaped fountain. "I'll be holding a bouquet of red roses and an elegant sign with your name on it," he had promised with romantic precision. "You'll recognize me immediately by my eyes. They're the same ones you see on our video calls. And I will recognize the most beautiful woman in the entire airport." Those words echoed in Sabine's mind as she walked determinedly toward the designated area, her luggage rolling behind her and her heart beating so hard it seemed audible. The arrivals area was bustling with the typical frenetic energy of an international hub like Dubai. Hundreds of people were milling about in all directions. Hurried Arab executives talking on gold-plated phones. Extended families reuniting after long separations with shouts of joy and emotional hugs. European tourists carrying luggage and expensive cameras. Sabine carefully scanned each male face, desperately searching for the familiar features of Kamal that she had memorized through thousands of photos and dozens of video calls over the months. 15 minutes passed, then 30. Sabine's anxious smile began to falter, but she easily rationalized the first signs of delay. Maybe his flight was delayed due to air traffic, she thought, remembering how he had mentioned that he traveled frequently and was familiar with common logistical problems. Or maybe he's stuck In that famous Dubai traffic he always talks about. She sent a message via WhatsApp, her hands trembling slightly. I'm here, my love. I'm waiting for you. Right where we agreed, near the Lotus Fountain. Where are you? I can't wait to see you. An hour passed without any response. Sabine's anxiety gradually turned into genuine concern that began to erode her initial euphoria. She methodically walked through the entire arrivals area, checked other nearby gates, approached the information desks, and asked uniformed airport staff if there were other designated meeting areas for international passengers. Everyone was polite but unhelpful. No sign of Kamal. Trying to remain calm and rationalize the situation, Sabine decided to call Kamal's Turkish phone number directly, which she had called hundreds of times in recent months. To her growing horror, an automated message in English and Arabic coldly informed her that the number did not exist or was permanently out of service. This must be a technical error, she muttered to herself, trying again. Same result. Desperate and feeling the first signs of real panic, she tried to access his Facebook profile using the airport's free Wi-Fi. The page had disappeared. Completely, as if it had never existed. There wasn't even a user not found. Message, just nothing. It was as if Kamal Oskan had been erased from digital reality. The real panic set in when Sabine checked her WhatsApp chat history. To her utter horror, Kamal's messages had also mysteriously disappeared. Not just the recent ones but all the conversations from the last 6 months. It was as if all communication, all declarations of love, all promises of a future had been systematically erased from existence. Her hands shook violently as she desperately tried to find any digital trace of the man who had promised to be there waiting for her. This can't be happening to me, she muttered aloud, drawing curious and concerned glances from other passengers who noticed her growing agitation. He said he loved me. We made detailed plans together. He showed me documents, introduced me to his business partner. This has to be some terrible misunderstanding. But deep in her heart, a terrifying truth was beginning to emerge through her desperate denial. For the next 2 hours, Sabine remained stubbornly at the airport, categorically refusing to accept the reality that was becoming increasingly obvious. She approached security personnel with photos of Kamal printed from her phone, persistently asked information desks about flights from Istanbul, and even tried to access Dubai hotel reservation systems through her laptop to check if there were any reservations registered under Kamal Yukin's name. All attempts were completely unsuccessful. The final devastating realization came when Sabine tried to access the address of Kamal's company website from her personal laptop. The corporate website he had proudly shown her during their conversations was completely offline, and further research using specialized search engines revealed that no company with that name had ever been officially registered in Istanbul or anywhere else in Turkey. All evidence of his business existence was elaborate forgeries created specifically to deceive her. Sitting on a cold, uncomfortable plastic chair in the airport waiting area, surrounded by happy families and hurried travelers living their normal lives, Sabine finally grasped the terrifying magnitude of her situation. She was completely alone in a foreign country thousands of miles from home, having spent her years of savings on a trip based on an elaborate and systematic lie. The man she had fallen deeply in love with, the future she had obsessively planned, the happiness that seemed to be finally within her grasp. It had all been an illusion carefully constructed by people she had never really known. The tears began to flow uncontrollably. Not just tears of romantic disappointment, but of deep humiliation, brutal emotional betrayal, and the terrible recognition of her own vulnerability. At 52, Sabine Hoffman found herself the victim of a sophisticated international romance scam. Completely isolated in Dubai, forced to confront a reality that would destroy not only her romantic hopes but also her fundamental confidence in herself and her ability to judge. The nightmare was just beginning. Sabine's first 48 hours in Dubai were a whirlwind of destructive emotions that left her physically and mentally exhausted. After the painful realization at the airport, she took refuge in the hotel she had booked. Ironically, the same one Kamal had recommended and which she now suspected was part of his elaborate criminal scheme. The luxurious room overlooking the Burj Khalifa, which should have been the romantic setting for their passionate reunion, became her prison of humiliation and utter despair. During those first hours of traumatic shock, Sabine oscillated violently between desperate denial and brutal acceptance of reality. A stubborn part of her still hoped that Kamal would show up at the hotel door with a plausible explanation. Perhaps a family medical emergency, serious business problems, or diplomatic complications that had prevented him from attending the meeting. Compulsively checked her phone every few minutes, waiting for a message. A missed call, any sign that the man she had fallen in love with still existed somewhere in the real world. But as the hours passed in deafening silence and the emptiness stretched on endlessly, Sabine began to coldly analyze the last 6 months of their virtual relationship with the cruel clarity that comes after a devastating betrayal. Details she had ignored, rationalized, or romanticized began to form a sinister and meticulously planned pattern that made her feel nauseous at her own naivety. Determined to fully understand how she had been so elaborately deceived, Sabine turned her hotel room into a makeshift investigation center. Using the hotel's premium Wi-Fi, she employed reverse image search tools she found online to systematically check all the photos Kamal had shared over the months. The result was absolutely devastating. The images of the successful businessman were of a professional Turkish male model whose photos were widely available on commercial image banks on the internet. The luxurious apartment with panoramic views of the Bosphorus that he claimed was his home actually belonged to a high-end real estate listing in Istanbul. The photos of the modern office where he supposedly conducted his international business were of a commercial space available for rent by co-working companies. Even the images of the expensive restaurants where they dined were stock photographs of establishments that anyone could download for free. The most shocking and terrifying discovery came when Sabine found a specialized online forum dedicated exclusively to victims of international romance scams. The site, called Romance Scam Survivors, contained hundreds of detailed accounts that left her cold. There she read dozens of stories eerily similar to her own. Women from Germany, Austria, the Netherlands, and other European countries who had been seduced by Turkish businessmen, using exactly the same psychological techniques, the same stolen photographs, and even romantic phrases identical to those Kamal had used on her. One of the most detailed victims was a 49-year-old Austrian woman named Helena Weber who had meticulously documented her experience in a personal blog linked to the forum. His name was Me Dare when he seduced me for 8 months. Helena wrote with painful accuracy. He used exactly the same photos I saw described by other victims. The same elaborate story about his wife who died of cancer, even the same romantic expressions in broken English. I lost 15,000. And almost my sanity before I discovered the truth through other survivors. The similarity between Helena's experience and her own was so precise and detailed that Sabine felt violently nauseous as she read. Even the sequence of seduction was identical, establishing trust through constant attention, carefully calculated emotional validation, gradual introduction of information about wealth and success, and finally the invitation to a romantic encounter in a neutral and distant location. Through the forum and links to specialized journalistic articles, Sabine gradually discovered that she was dealing with a sophisticated international criminal organization, likely based in several countries simultaneously specializing in systematically exploiting middle-aged European women through advanced psychological techniques. The scammers meticulously studied their victims' social media profiles, identified specific emotional and financial vulnerabilities, and then carried out personalized seduction campaigns that could last many months or even years. The method was scientifically precise and psychologically brutal. Establish deep emotional connection through constant attention. Build absolute trust through behavioral consistency and false evidence. Create an irresistible romantic fantasy based on the victim's unmet needs, and then gradually manipulate the victim into situations where they would be extremely vulnerable to extortion, blackmail, or outright. Dubai had been strategically chosen by the criminals, not only as a geographically neutral location, but as an environment where the victim would feel culturally and legally isolated, far from her family and social support system, and dependent on people she didn't know in a legal system she didn't understand. But he never asked me for money directly, Sabine muttered to herself, desperately trying to find some difference that would justify her experience as unique. Then she recalled with growing horror the various occasions when Kamal had casually asked about her personal finances, her retirement investments, her professional situation at the hospital, even details about the banking systems of the institution where she worked. Information that seemed like genuine Romantic interest was in fact meticulous reconnaissance to determine her value as a criminal target and map out the best strategies for exploitation. She had willingly provided a complete financial profile of herself, believing she was sharing her life with a future husband. The most terrifying realization came when Sabine understood from the accounts of other victims that her ordeal was probably just beginning, not ending. Other testimonies on the forum described in detail how scammers often escalated their operations after the initial failed encounter, transforming themselves from romantic seducers into relentless blackmailers. A German victim named Ingrid Neumann, 55, described in terrifying detail how she was repeatedly contacted for 2 years after her failed date in Istanbul. They had all the intimate photos I had sent during our relationship. They knew specific details about my family, my work, my daily routine, even my personal fears. They said they would publish everything online and send it to my colleagues if I didn't pay $10,000. It was a psychological nightmare that lasted 2 whole years. Sitting on the luxurious hotel bed in Dubai, surrounded by printed evidence of her own naivety and vulnerability, Sabine finally understood the terrifying magnitude of her actual situation. She was not just the victim of a simple isolated romance scam, but had become the conscious target of an international criminal operation that now possessed extremely detailed information about her personal, professional, and financial life. Information that could be used to destroy her completely. At that moment of absolute realization, her phone rang with a call from an unknown international number. It was a Turkish number she didn't recognize. With her heart racing violently and her hands shaking, Sabine hesitantly answered. "Hello, Sabine," said a calm male voice, with a pronounced Turkish accent, but completely different from the familiar voice of Kamal she had loved. "We know you're in Dubai. We know you found out about Kamal. We need to talk urgently. There's a way we can resolve this that will be much better for all of us." Sabine's real nightmare was just beginning. And this time she knew exactly what she was facing. The call lasted only 3 minutes, but it was enough to turn Sabine's despair into genuine, paralyzing terror. The voice on the other end of the line was professionally calm and controlled, which somehow made the situation even more frightening than if it had been aggressive. "My name is Hassan," said the man with a polite Turkish accent. "I work with Kamal in our international business. We understand that there has been an unfortunate misunderstanding, but we can resolve this quickly and civilly if you cooperate with us." "What kind of cooperation?" asked Sabine, her voice trembling despite her desperate efforts to sound brave and controlled. "You invested a lot in this trip to Dubai, didn't you?" Hassan replied calmly, completely ignoring her direct question. "Expensive airline tickets, luxury hotel, precious time off from work, new clothes. It would be a terrible shame to return to Germany empty-handed after so much emotional and financial investment. We can adequately compensate you for your romantic disappointment." The proposal sounded both tempting and deeply threatening. Hassan explained in calculated detail that Sabine could not only recoup all the money she had spent on the trip, but even profit substantially from the situation if she agreed to perform a few simple business tasks during her remaining stay in Dubai. "Just small, discreet deliveries," he explained vaguely but with intimidating precision. "Important business documents for our legitimate German partners. Nothing illegal or remotely dangerous, just professional courier services." Sabine, despite her completely fragmented emotional state, retained enough critical sense to be deeply suspicious of the offer. Something in the way Hassan spoke, too calm, overly precise, artificially courteous, set off all the danger alarms in her mind. "I just want to get home as quickly as possible," she said with forced firmness. "I don't want to get involved in anything related to you guys." Hassan's tone changed imperceptibly, becoming several degrees colder and significantly more threatening. "Sabine, over the past 6 months you have shared a lot of extremely personal information with Kamal. Intimate, compromising photos, specific details about your family and colleagues, confidential information about your work at the hospital, even data about your personal financial habits. It would be very unfortunate and professionally destructive if this private information reached the wrong people, your coworkers, your daughter Charlotte, your critical ex-mother-in-law. People like that can be very judgmental and socially ruthless." The threat was crystal clear, even though it was presented in a polite and subtle way. Sabine felt her stomach clench violently with genuine fear. During the months of intense virtual relationship she had Indeed shared compromising personal photos, intimate details about her personal and professional life, and even confidential information about procedures and systems at the hospital where she worked. More than enough material to completely destroy her professional and personal reputation if used maliciously by unscrupulous people. "I'll think about it carefully," Sabine murmured, her voice breaking, ending the call with her hands shaking uncontrollably. In the hours that followed, Sabine desperately researched her limited legal options in a foreign country. Contacted the German embassy in Dubai, explaining her situation briefly but honestly. The consular official was polite and sympathetic, but offered very little practical help beyond diplomatically suggesting that she file a formal complaint with the local police and return to Germany as soon as possible. "Unfortunately, cases like yours are becoming increasingly common in our consular experience," the official explained with obvious professional fatigue. "International legal systems have great practical difficulty in dealing effectively with complex cross-border cybercrimes. Our ability to help German citizens in situations like this is quite limited by local laws." The Dubai police proved equally frustrating and bureaucratically useless. The officer who attended to Sabine at the central police station was polite and professional, but made it absolutely clear that without concrete physical evidence of a crime committed specifically on Emirati territory, there was very little they could do officially. "If you didn't lose any actual money and weren't physically assaulted in Dubai, technically no crime was committed within our legal jurisdiction," he explained patiently. "The romance scam took place online, likely coordinated from another country entirely. That's beyond our investigative authority." During her second full day in Dubai, Hassan called again, this time with a considerably more direct and openly intimidating approach. "You spoke to the German embassy and visited the local police yesterday," he said, a factual statement, not a question, which made it absolutely clear that Sabine was being actively monitored and followed. "That was unnecessary and has significantly complicated matters for everyone involved." "How do you know exactly what I did?" Sabine asked, fear now completely evident and uncontrollable in her voice. "Sabine, you are on our territory now," Hassan replied with calculated coldness. "Dubai is a surprisingly small city when you know the right people and have the right contacts. We strongly suggest that you immediately stop creating unnecessary problems and seriously consider our original business offer. It may be your only realistic opportunity to get out of this situation with your personal and professional dignity completely intact." Deal. The terrifying realization that she was being actively watched and possibly followed by unknown individuals added a new dimension of paranoid terror to Sabine's already desperate situation. Every person in the luxurious hotel, every uniformed employee she interacted with, every casual stranger on the busy streets could potentially be connected to the criminal organization that had deliberately lured her to Dubai as an elaborate trap. That night, completely alone in her hotel room and feeling more vulnerable than she had ever experienced, Sabine made a desperate but necessary decision. She called her daughter Charlotte in Germany, explaining the situation briefly but completely and asking for urgent financial help to change her flight and return home immediately. Charlotte, an experienced 28-year-old criminal lawyer, was both shocked and furious to learn the details of the elaborate scam. "Mom, this is much more serious and dangerous than you realize," Charlotte said with professional urgency. "These criminals now have detailed personal information about our entire family through you. You need to return to Germany immediately and we need to notify the German police who specialize in international crime. This isn't just a romantic scam. It's a sophisticated criminal operation." Indeed, but when Sabine tried to change her return flight through the airline's website, she discovered a new and terrifying problem. Her German passport had mysteriously disappeared from her hotel room during her absence to visit the police. A desperate and meticulous search of the entire room revealed that absolutely nothing else had been stolen. No cash, no expensive jewelry, no valuable electronics, no credit cards. Only the official document that would legally allow her to leave Dubai. Hassan's call came exactly 1 hour after the theft was discovered with timing that could not be a coincidence. "Your German passport is completely safe in our possession," he said casually as if he were talking about the weather. "It will be returned in perfect condition as soon as our mutually beneficial business cooperation is completely finalized. A simple matter of 3 or 4 business days at most." Sabine was now effectively a prisoner in Dubai, the official hostage of a sophisticated international criminal organization that had meticulously transformed her naive romantic dream into a psychological nightmare that she was only beginning to comprehend in all its terrifying complexity. The phone rang again. This time her son had a much more specific and considerably more dangerous proposal. Sabine's third day in Dubai began with a terrifying and paradoxically liberating clarity about her real situation. Imprisoned without her passport, threatened with systematic blackmail, and completely isolated in a foreign country, she finally understood that she was dealing with a criminal organization, far more sophisticated and internationally dangerous than she had imagined in her worst nightmares. The romantic fantasy had definitively turned into a nightmare of international exploitation. But something fundamental had changed in Sabine's psyche during her sleepless night. Her son made contact via a cold and professionally threatening text message instructing Spine to meet him in the luxurious lobby of a five-star hotel in Dubai's financial center. Dress appropriately for business. The message read with intimidating precision. Behave completely naturally. Remember constantly that many people are watching your every move. The implied threat was crystal clear. Any attempt to seek outside help or create a public scene could have devastating and unpredictable consequences. The meeting took place in a surrealistically civilized setting that contrasted brutally with the criminal nature of the situation. Hassan was an impeccably respectable-looking man in his 40s, dressed in an expensive Italian business suit that could cost more than Sabine's monthly salary. He could easily pass for a legitimate international executive in any professional context. They sat in a reserved area of the marble lobby, surrounded by wealthy tourists and Arab businessmen. The opulent normality of the environment contrasting cruelly with the desperate situation Sabine faced. You seem tired and unnecessarily stressed, her son observed with a completely false courtesy that made Sabine's stomach churn with disgust. This situation really doesn't have to be so psychologically stressful for either of us. We are intelligent, reasonable people doing mutually beneficial business in a civilized manner. Hassan then methodically revealed the true international scope of the criminal operation of which Sabine had inadvertently become a victim. The organization operated on a truly global scale with criminal cells active in at least 15 European and Middle Eastern countries, specializing not only in elaborate romance scams but also in international money laundering, trafficking in forged documents, electronic bank fraud, and other sophisticated criminal activities that moved millions of euros annually. Sabine was not just a random victim of a romance scam. She had been specifically and deliberately selected because of her unique professional profile, a registered and respected nurse with institutional access to hospital banking systems, no criminal record, and social credibility that would allow her to move large sums of money without automatically arousing the suspicion of the authorities. Your position as a senior nurse at a renowned German hospital is extremely valuable to our European operations, Hassan explained with cold business-like efficiency. Hospitals routinely process thousands of complex international financial transactions, imported drugs, expensive medical equipment, pharmaceutical research, international donations. An industry where large and frequent financial transfers go completely unnoticed by the authorities. Their plan was to use Sabine as an unwitting financial intermediary for systematic money laundering operations, cynically exploiting her impeccable professional reputation and her privileged access to the German hospital's institutional banking systems. She would be forced to facilitate seemingly legitimate financial transfers that would in reality launder money from international criminal activities. The simple deliveries Hassan had mentioned earlier were actually the physical transport of cloned credit cards, meticulously forged identity documents, coded instructions for complex financial transfers, and even samples of stolen controlled drugs. Sabine would be required to return to Germany physically carrying these criminal materials, using her respectable appearance as a nurse and her socially trusted profession to pass through international airport security without arousing any suspicion. If you cooperate intelligently and professionally, Hassan said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, your share of each transaction will be 5% of the total amount processed. We are talking conservatively about thousands of euros per month, much more than you earn honestly as a nurse. After exactly 1 year of successful and mutually profitable cooperation, you will be completely free to end our business relationship without any consequences. The threats accompanying this generous offer were explicit and elaborately detailed. If Sabine refused to cooperate willingly, not only would all the intimate information she had shared with Keimel be systematically disclosed to destroy her reputation, but the organization would also fabricate convincing evidence that she had willingly participated in criminal activities from the outset. We have meticulously edited records of your conversations promising to help Kemal with his international business. Hassan lied with professional conviction. Digital love letters where you express explicit willingness to do anything for him, including activities that could be interpreted as criminal conspiracy. It would be absurdly easy to present this as legal evidence of voluntary participation in international criminal operations. Sabine felt her whole world definitively collapsing around her. The organization had created an absolutely perfect psychological and legal trap. She was now involved in a situation where any attempt to seek official help or refuse cooperation would automatically result in her complete personal, professional, and legal destruction. As a registered nurse, any criminal charge, even a completely false one, would irreversibly destroy her career. As a mother and respected member of her German community, the public exposure of her private life would be socially and emotionally devastating. I need additional time to carefully consider this proposal, Sabine murmured, desperate to escape the conversation and buy herself time to think. Of course, Hassan replied with a predatory smile. You have until 10 a.m. tomorrow to make your final decision. Your German passport will be returned immediately once you sign a few legal documents confirming our mutually beneficial business agreement. That night, alone in her hotel room and facing the most crucial decision of her life, Spine made the most courageous resolution she had ever considered. Instead of succumbing to despair or accepting blackmail, she began to meticulously document her entire criminal experience. Screenshots of the few conversations with Kemal she was able to retrieve. Secret recordings of her phone conversations with Hassan. Detailed physical descriptions, phone numbers, email addresses, even discreet photographs of the hotel lobby where they met. Most crucially, Sabine secretly recorded her next phone conversation with Hassan using a professional recording app she had downloaded. When he called to confirm their final meeting the next day, she feigned genuine interest in cooperating, while in reality collecting criminal evidence that could save her. The next morning, armed with meticulous documentation and recorded evidence, Sabine headed straight to Dubai's Central Police Station, but this time with a completely different strategy. Instead of presenting herself as a helpless victim, she positioned herself as a voluntary informant with concrete evidence of an active international criminal operation. Commander Ahmed al-Rashid, an expert in international financial crimes, immediately recognized the criminal patterns Sabine was accurately describing. This particular organization has been on our watch list for over 18 months, he explained with renewed professional interest. They operate using multiple identities and various nationalities, but the psychological techniques are always consistent. Your documented evidence may finally be the key to putting them away for good. What followed was a carefully coordinated international police operation. Sabine, now officially working under specialized police protection, was instructed to attend the final meeting with Hassan as planned, but this time equipped with high-quality recording devices provided by the police. The goal was to capture Hassan, admitting specific details about the international criminal operation. The arrest was cinematically dramatic. Hassan was detained at the exact moment he handed Sabine forged documents, legally confirming the charges of international criminal conspiracy. A simultaneous operation at 6 different locations in Dubai resulted in the seizure of computers, forged documents, cloned credit cards, and the arrest of 12 members of the criminal organization. 18 months later, back to her life in Dusseldorf, Sabine had become a recognized international advocate against romance scams. Her courage in Dubai had resulted in the dismantling of one of Europe's largest romance scam operations, potentially saving hundreds of other women. I thought I was chasing love, Sabine reflects during her educational lectures. But what I really found was a brutal lesson in how modern predators exploit our most basic human need. The emotional scar never goes away, but I turned my pain into protection for others. True love doesn't require you to travel across the world to find a stranger.